Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. You are listening to Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the beautiful, historical, book-loving neighborhood of Reedville, the loveliest neighborhood in all of Boston. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you join us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in our mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Amazon Music, Audible, YouTube. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. Really wonderful episode for you today. First up, Maria Dolores Aguila is here to celebrate A Sea of Lemon Trees, the Corrido of Roberto Alvarez. And later in the show, David McMullen will be here to celebrate his new board book, Rock and Roll Baby. Before we invite our guests into the studio, I want to let you know we have a brand new Reading with Your Kids certified great read. I'm so excited to shine a spotlight on the power of encouragement, turning I can't into I can, written by our friend Ruth Malley. Ruth is a wonderful author, and The Power of Encouragement is the latest in her The Power of series. You know, one of the things we talk about all the time on the show is how powerful our words are. And this book brings that message to life in such a fun, engaging, and meaningful way. Through the lovable character of Orbit and a classroom full of kids, just like the classrooms your kids go to, readers discover that encouragement isn't just about cheering somebody on. It's about giving them the courage to try, to fail, and to try again and succeed. I especially love the moment when kids realize that the word encourage actually contains the word courage. That's a mic drop moment for me. This book is perfect for families, educators, and anyone who wants to help kids grow up believing in themselves. So, it is my absolute honor to present The Power of Encouragement with the Reading with Your Kids certified great read seal of approval. Ruth, thank you for creating such a beautiful, empowering book. And hey, remember, your words matter. So go out there and tell a kid you can do it. Hey, I want to let you know that this episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by When Fred the Snake and Friends Go to the Beach. Another in the wonderful Fred the Snake series written by our friend Dr. Peter Cotton. What if your next beach day turned into the adventure of a lifetime? And when Fred the Snake and Friends go to the beach, Fred and his friends are headed to the beautiful sea islands off the coast of South Carolina, where the sun is shining, the waves are rolling, and there's a whole world waiting to be explored. From sandy shores to ocean discoveries, Fred and his pals dive into a day filled with laughter, curiosity, and friendship. Whether they're exploring the coastline, meeting new sea creatures, or simply enjoying time together, every moment is a reminder that the best adventures are the ones we share. This is the fifth book in the beloved Fred the Snake series, where each story brings new places, new friends, and new opportunities to learn and to grow. Written, of course, by Dr. Peter Cotton, renowned physician, teacher, and now gifted storyteller, these books continue to delight families with their warmth, imagination, and heart. So grab your towel, bring your imagination, and join Fred for a seaside adventure your family is going to love. Get your copy now, When Fred the Snake and Friends Go to the Beach, by Dr. Peter Cotton. Joining us right now from sunny California, our guest is here today to celebrate her middle grade novel in verse. It's A Sea of Lemon Trees, the Corrido of Roberto Alvarez. Please welcome to the show, Maria Dolores Aguila. Maria, how are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. This is where we're recording this in February. We'll be releasing it in the beginning of March. And this is based on something that happened in March many decades ago.
Yes, this actually happened in 1931. It's been referred to as the Lemon Grove incident.
Tell me about this and tell me about Roberto, please.
Yes, so the Lemon Grove incident happened in 1931 in Lemon Grove, California. And basically what happened is during that time, it was the Great Depression. And because of the economic downturn, the Mexican and Mexican American community was kind of scapegoated for the economic downturn. And this sentiment kind of swept the nation, and it ended up going into schools where the school that had previously served all students, they decided to segregate it into two separate schools. So one school for the white students and one school for the Mexican students on the other side of the town in a retrofitted barn that they called La Caballeriza. And so, the parents obviously were not happy with that. And so they got together, they formed a committee, and they chose Roberto to be the lead plaintiff because he was an excellent student that spoke English and Spanish. And they actually successfully won, and they were able to reintegrate the school.
And this happened, what is it, 20 years before Brown versus Board of Education?
Just about, yep.
Yeah, wow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Brown versus Board of Education, I didn't have to look up any notes. It's right there. I think most people are aware of that landmark. Why are we not aware of Roberto?
That's a good question. And I think mostly because it was it stayed as a state local case instead of like going up further. The people that had, the people that were, against the committee, they ran out of money after that first court case, so they weren't able to pursue it any further. So who knows, it might have gone up the line, but it didn't. So it just stayed kind of like a local incident.
I think this is something that I wasn't aware of. I understood the Depression. I had even though I'm almost old enough to have lived through it, I know about the Dust Bowl, but I don't know that much about it. And I definitely was not aware of the effort to, force Mexicans, to go back to Mexico. People who who was living and born in the United States.
Yes. And you know what? I didn't know it either. And the reason that I became interested in that is because I was doing some family research and I was looking into my grandmother's, lineage, where we came from. And I remember when I was a kid that she took her citizenship test. And, I never thought of anything of it because I always knew that she was born in Mexico and, that's what you do. And so when I was looking into it, I saw that my great grandmother was actually from Texas. And so my grandmother, she didn't have to take this citizenship test. If she had known that her mother was a U.S. citizen, she could have got it that way. And so it made me wonder why my great grandmother was born in Texas, why her siblings were born in the United States, but my grandmother wasn't. And unfortunately, too much time had passed. For when I started researching that, and my grandma is not around anymore, so I wasn't able to ask her about it. But it's one of those things that kind of gets swept under the rug, the Mexican repatriation. And there's not an exact estimate, but there's anywhere from 300,000 to 2 million Mexican and Mexican Americans were deported without due process. And the majority of them were children, and the majority of them were citizens. This was the known as the Mexican repatriation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. And it seems like history is repeating itself.
It does. It seems like we live in the echoes of history. William Faulkner said, the past isn't dead. It's not even past. And I think about that when I talk about, the Sea of Lemon Trees.
So I know that you just finished a presentation, at a school out in California. Yeah. Tell me about those. I was sharing with Maria that I made a living doing educational magic shows, and what I was doing, I imagine, was a whole lot different than the presentations that you're doing. What's the reaction of the kids as they hear about Roberto and this story?
So I love doing school presentations. I do free school presentations for Title I schools in San Diego, so those make up the majority of my visits. And I do that because I was once a child at a Title I school, and I always wanted to be an author. So for me, having been able to meet an author that looked like me and that was part of my community, it would have been amazing. So when I go to these schools, and at first I generally talk about my author journey, about how long it took me to become an author, and they're always surprised, it took like 10 years. And then we start talking about the history. And, every, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but the teachers always come up to me and they're like, you could hear a pin drop. They were like captivated. They were engaged. Like thank you for coming, because the kids just love to hear this history, and they love to hear that it's local. They like to know that, they're part of something bigger. I mean, I've never had a problem like with the kids sitting through a reading, even a long one. They just love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I bet. Why did you choose to tell this story in verse?
So there's a lot of reasons I wanted to tell it in verse. And I think the biggest one is that when you write a novel in verse, you distill it down to its very essence. So you are reducing the story down to the most important parts, the parts that are the most poignant. And so I love doing that because, I came from picture book writing. I had two picture books before Sea of Lemon Trees came out. But also because I have a reluctant reader myself. I have three kids that are 9, 12, and 14. And some of them, they prefer to be read to. They don't want to pick up a book and read. And I think sometimes that comes from opening up a book and seeing this block of text and feeling intimidated. So I wanted to make sure that this story was accessible even for someone who might be a reluctant reader. When they opened it, they would see that, it's not a big block of text. There's a lot of white space, and then they feel that sense of pride when they complete a book, right? A nice little fat book. They get excited that they did that. So that's why, I was drawn to write this as a novel in verse.
Yeah. I have a feeling, Maria, that you kids, they may be reluctant readers, but I have a feeling they just like hanging out with you and having you read for them.
I suspect that because they don't complain about reading, but they want me to read.
Yeah. Well, that's what we celebrate here on Reading with Your Kids. And I know myself, one of the happiest days of my life. And I remember I know that the teacher must have thought I was crazy, but my daughter was in second grade and she was reading independently, and I loved reading with her. And so I was kind of pulling back and letting her read by herself. And her second grade teacher came up to me and said, "Hey, you got to keep reading with her." And I said, I do. Yo, awesome. Great. And we kept on reading together for a long time. And that led to cooking together and watching TV together. And I mean, we had, for every year of her teen years, we had a different appointment show that we would watch together. And it's beautiful, and that was all built on a foundation of reading together as youngins.
Yeah. So even my 14-year-old, she'll sit through a picture book. I mean, and it's so much. Because I've been reading to her since she was born. When I had a baby shower, I was like, "Don't buy me clothes, like buy me books. Like I want to read my books with my kids." And so she'll read it, and now it's so beautiful, the conversations that we have, because I'll be like, "Well, what do you think of the language that the author used here? Like, would you have phrased it the same way? Like, I really like it because there's a lot of alliteration and stuff like that." So even though she's older and you think she's past the age of picture book reading, they still really like it, and they still really enjoy it. We do longer ones, but we mix them up.
Yeah. So going back to A Sea of Lemon Trees, the novel in verse, is your book a collection of different poems telling the story, or is it one long poem?
No, it's a collection of different poems, and it's basically the narrative is told through a series of poems.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And are there different styles of poems in the book, or is it all following one kind of style?
It's a free verse, so sometimes there's no set like rhyme or anything like that. It's just kind of however I felt inspired to tell that particular part of the story in that poem. But it's a free verse, and a lot of times, there'll be a word play where they're stretched out, or or stacked on top of each other. I just find that it's just a lot of fun for me personally, just to play on the page with these words.
Yeah. I'm curious because I love being able to talk to creatives process and how they put things. And one of the things I love to do is kind of get into the head of the people who create these universes of magic and future and all this. How do you keep that stuff straight as you're creating these verses and these poems telling a story? Do you kind of pick like one character? We introduce this character through this poem over here, and how these two interact over here. I'm just curious about the creative process you follow.
So for me, because I knew that I was telling the story through Roberto's point of view, we go through what he's experiencing. So we meet characters as Roberto interacts with them, and sometimes there'll be an aside, like when he meets his friend David, and we talk about whatever they're doing, and then on the next poem, on the next page, there's a thing that says David has too many brothers, and then that's just the poem. It's just 2 lines, and then we'll say, and I have too many sisters and a brother. So we meet them as Roberto interacts with them. And sometimes after we interact with them, there'll be a poem afterwards that kind of goes into a little bit deeper of that character that we just interacted with. But it's a little bit hard because it does have, A Sea of Lemon Trees does kind of have like a big cast. But I do my best to try to keep them differentiated with their own, things that they say and ways that they act. It is hard to like keep track of it, but I have a project notebook that I use while I'm drafting a novel, and I like rigorously keep track of everything that I'm doing because it's a lot to hold in your head.
Yeah. Tell me, so the book has a happy ending. The town came together and reintegrated the story.
Mm-hmm.
What about the community? It's one thing for us, for kids to be in school together, but it's totally other thing, but being truly an integrated community. Did that happen in Lemon Grove?
I want to say yes and no. There was a side of the town where Roberto lives that they called the Colonia. And that's where most of the Mexican and Mexican Americans lived. And there was another side of the town where everybody else lived. I wouldn't say that it, completely integrated, but the school remains integrated. I don't know, that I could say, that the whole town was reintegrated, that's as far as like that went.
Mm-hmm. What about Roberto? What more do we know about him? I know he was the focal point, the kind of plaintiff, I guess, of the story. What kind of a life did he lead after this?
So one of the most interesting things about Roberto is that he was very quiet about being the lead plaintiff. Like it wasn't something he talked about a lot. He did go on to serve in the Navy, I believe. And then he went on to found Coast Citrus Company, which is like a citrus company where they, produce and distribute citrus fruits. Mm-hmm. So he went on to have a very successful career. I mean, Coast Citrus is still around, but he was always very quiet about his role in the Lemon Grove incident. And really, most of the information that I found was through his son, Roberto Alvarez Jr. He wrote extensively about the case that Roberto was involved in. He wrote his thesis about Lemon Grove, and then he wrote a lot of articles about Roberto's role in the Lemon Grove incident. So, and I feel like it kind of comes from that generation that Roberto's from, that grew up in the 30s. Like, they were just quiet about the things that they endured and didn't really like brag or, want a lot of attention drawn to them.
Right. You mentioned having great conversations with your children, reading together, even as teens. What kind of conversations do you think families can have as they gather around and read Sea of Lemon Trees together?
So with the Sea of Lemon Trees, I think there's a lot of for families to talk about. I think that we can kind of talk about what we see in the Sea of Lemon Trees with regards to how the committee has is facing pressure from the county when they start threatening repatriation to some of the families. And ultimately, one of the families does undergo that. And we can talk about how that parallels, what we see today and about not only like what's happening, but also like the hope. Like you can see that when people come together, you know, there's resistance and unity and through collective action, we can accomplish amazing things. Yeah. So there's a lot of things that you can talk about. But I mean, ultimately, I hope it gives people like a sense of like hope to try to make the world a better place, to inspire change in your community.
Yeah. You mentioned loving doing school presentations. I know over the years, kids say the wildest and funniest and ask really powerful questions sometimes. Mm-hmm. What are some of the questions that you've heard over the years that really stand out to you?
Some of those, I'm surprised at how perceptive some of the children are. They just ask questions that cut right through everything. Some of them, I think the most perceptive question is that they'll ask me like, didn't you ever feel like giving up? And because I talk about how to get my first book, I had to go through 5 years and 60 rejections. And I'd be like, yeah, I did want to give up. There's many times where I actually did give up, but I actually came back. And they'll ask me like, what is the hardest thing that you had to do to change, to get where you are? And I'll be like, well, I had to learn how to accept criticism. I had to learn how to become a better storyteller. And I learned that by hearing no and hearing rejection. So they ask, great questions like that, but they also ask really funny questions too. Like they'll ask me, are you rich? And I'm like, no, if you want to be rich, don't be don't be an author.
Yeah. That's, a lot of times I remember kids going, are you famous? I'm like, well, I guess if you have to ask, probably not.
Yeah, they ask me that too, and I'm like, no, I'm sorry. And they'll be like, well, you're famous to me. And I'm like, okay, thank you.
That's exactly. You know me now, I'm famous. That's all I care about. Yeah. Can you give us a sneak peek about what you might be working on for your next project?
Yes. So for my next project, I'm actually working on the 1968 East LA school walkouts, and it's also in conjunction with the 1970 Chicano moratorium in East Los Angeles. So I tend to really love looking into historical events, especially protests, and just finding out all the history, right? Because it's so fascinating, but also writing about how people come together and resist and do incredible things that ultimately we all benefit from.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about A Sea of Lemon Trees and find out more about you.
Yes. The best place would be on my website, mariadoloresaguila.com. Just spell my name out with a .com. I'm also on Instagram as maria.d.aguila. And I mean, I'd love if anyone followed or to connect over, a contact form.
Yeah. And you were saying you give, free programs for Title I schools. Is that any Title I school or just, in certain areas?
Just in San Diego, because I tend to do better as an in-person visit. I've tried a few virtual ones and it's just not the same. But yes, Title I schools in San Diego. Yes, I do free school visits.
Awesome. We've had a great time speaking to the author of A Sea of Lemon Trees. It's a novel in verse from our guest, Maria Dolores Aguila. Maria, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, my friends, I have a super idea you are going to love. How about this weekend, turn your backyard cookout into a storybook celebration? Fire up the grill, crack open a few of your favorite picture books, and serve up Big Fork Brand's legendary bacon sausage. Made with nitrate-free bacon and premium pork, it's juicy, smoky, and unforgettable. Top it off with Big Fork's spicy Chicago fire sauce, and you've got a meal as bold as the characters in your favorite bedtime tale. Get 20% off your order using the promo code READ at bigforkbrands.com. That's bigforkbrands.com. Promo code READ to get 20% off, because nothing brings families together like great food, great books, and a whole lot of flavor. Big Fork Brands. Read, grill, repeat.
Attention, this important consumer alert is brought to you by CBC Funding. Hey, did you know it's possible to receive upfront money from your structured settlement, annuity, or pending lawsuit? It's true. If you are receiving a structured settlement spread out over time and you want a lump sum amount delivered immediately, then you need to call CBC Funding. With your cash today, you can pay off credit card debt, pay medical bills, fund your education, or improve your home. You don't need to wait. Structured settlements are commonly used to resolve personal injury lawsuits. Annuities, they're designed to spread payments out over 10 or 20 years. For many of you in need of money today, this simply does not work. If you have a structured settlement and you want cash now, call CBC's Settlement Funding. Here's the number.
800-442-0665. 800-442-0665. That's 800-442-0665.
This episode of Reading with Your Kids is sponsored by Ramble Office. You know, before I tell you about Ramble Office, let me tell you about what travel used to look like for me. When I take the Reading with Your Kids studio on the road, it was like a lot. I had one box for the mixer, another case for microphones, a satchel for my laptop, cables everywhere. And I always felt like I was forgetting something. That's why Ramble Office really clicked with me. Rambo takes everything I used to juggle, tech gear, personal stuff, and puts it into one smart, great-looking unit that's designed to be a mobile office, not just luggage. Everything has a place. Everything stays protected. And when you get to where you're going, you're ready to work. Instead of digging through bags or repacking your life every time you move, Rambo keeps your setup organized and ready to deploy. Travel days stop being chaos and start being productive. It's sleek, modern, built for people whose work doesn't stop just because they're on the move. And if your job follows you, whether that's podcasting, teaching, consulting, or creating, Ramble is worth a look. Go to RambleOfficeAnywhere.com, all one word, RambleOfficeAnywhere.com. Use the promo code READ, R-E-A-D, and receive 5% off any product. It's exclusive for Reading with Your Kids listeners. Check it out today, RambleOfficeAnywhere.com, promo code READ. Joining us right now from right outside of Las Vegas in Nevada, our guest is here today to celebrate his new board book, Rock and Roll Baby. Please welcome to the show, David McMullen. David, how are you?
I am doing excellent, Jed. Thank you so much for having me today.
And I'm right, you're right outside of Vegas. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I'm in Henderson. It's basically one giant city, but
I stayed a week in Henderson. It's a lovely community. They have a great Planet Fitness there.
Oh, good. Everything you need. It's a quiet town compared to much quieter than you would expect for being side by side with Las Vegas.
Yes, absolutely. I had the pleasure when I turned 60 years old. My beautiful wife said, "You've always wanted to go to Vegas and study magic with Jeff McBride." Jeff is a phenomenal magician and teacher, and he's been on the show. And so I went out and I hung out with Jeff in his house in Henderson and with Eugene Berger and a number of other magicians, and learned so much, and it was just magical. And I spent a grand total of an hour in actual Las Vegas the night I was leaving. I saw a show, then I went back to Planet Fitness and got on an airplane.
Yeah, it really is an amazing city to experience. The Strip is unlike any other place on the planet. Mm-hmm. But for me, I can only take it in small doses. I'm glad I'm a little bit removed from that all.
I absolutely agree with you. But very appropriate for a guy right outside of Vegas to be creating a board book called Rock and Roll Baby.
It is, wouldn't you think? The funny thing about it is I was never a rock and roll person.
Okay.
I don't not like rock and roll music or any of the associated genres of music. But it's not what I grew up on.
Okay.
I started out, I was a musical theater fan as a child, and I ended up performing musical theater as my first career.
Wonderful.
So, yeah.
Coincidentally, today's episode, we're recording this on February 19th. The episode that we released this morning featured Andrew Keenan Bolger.
Yes.
Who is also a theater kid and Broadway star.
I never met him, but we were in New York at the same time on Broadway. So our circles passed each other, but we never actually met.
Yeah.
But I did see a little of his episode this morning. That was a good episode.
Wonderful. Glad you liked it. So, you were a theater kid. So how did you end up writing Rock and Roll Baby?
It's funny. About 10 years, I've been writing seriously about 12 years, trying to create books for children. And about 10 years ago, the books that were very popular were the fractured fairy tales. Like the Stinky Cheese Man and all of the Little Red Gliding Hood and a whole variety of books that played with stories that existed but reworked them. And I was thinking, I wonder what I could find. And I started looking around, and all the fairy tales were taken. So I found the lullaby Rock-a-Bye Baby. And so I thought, what can I do with this? And the wordplay, rock and roll and rock-a-bye, was just so obvious.
Yeah.
And then I looked around. No one else had written it. I started playing with the fact that it could be a very boisterous bedtime book. I just thought the contrast was funny. And I started playing with that. I wrote a short version that was just, because this book now is 12 verses long. So I had written a short version, and my agent had sent it out on submissions, and it got some attention, but no sales.
Okay.
So we kind of put it aside. And then a few years later, she said, I still really like that. And I said, I do too. She said, maybe we could try to make it something more, little more sellable. And so I started exploring the different themes of rock and roll. So it's not just rock and roll. There's country rock and punk and Latin and R&B. So every page is a different form of music.
Very cool.
And it explores a baby's day from waking up to going to bed. So every page is also a different segment of the baby's day.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very
so it was very fun trying to match types of music with parts of the baby's day. I found like Latin worked really well for bedtime because it has that tropical feel. I mean, not bedtime, for bath time. And when the baby throws its tantrum, that's punk rock. And it was just fun to go through and create those connections, and also to explore it. It was almost like researching a nonfiction book. I would go through each genre of music and explore its language and its culture and see where it fit, and then use that language specifically for that page.
Very, very cool. What a great idea, and I love the way that you brought it to life.
It was a lot of fun, and so finally, I had dreams of it being a picture book. Not that I think one is better than the other in any way. I was just picturing the size, and the rock and roll has so much color and action that I pictured something bigger. And then the very first editor who made an offer said they wanted it as a board book. And it took me a moment. I thought, is that what I want? And then I thought, I actually think that's what it's meant to be. The themes were basic. It's for a baby. And it just all fit together perfectly. And so I'm really happy with the results. And the art actually ended up being as fantastic as I had imagined.
Yeah.
Even though I pictured something bigger, the contained bright colors work perfectly. The bold images, it's just exactly, and that's all by Alison Black, who is a fantastic artist who has done other board books.
Yeah.
So I really loved what came out of it.
Well, that's really fantastic. You know, as you were talking, I'm thinking David is not only giving through Rock and Roll Baby, not only are you giving families a wonderful chance to be together and bond and play with this song and this fairy tale, but you may be introducing and sparking a love of music in these little babies that are going to be hearing the book.
I hope so. I think one thing, people tend to see something in a certain way. So some people may say, oh, I don't like rock music.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many different kinds of rock music that it's hard to eliminate an entire group of music just because one bit of it is something that you didn't appeal to you at one point.
Right.
So I like to show that there's so many different options. If we go more specific, like people all the time say, oh, I don't like rap.
Uh-huh.
And yet Hamilton came out a few years ago and is a sensation, and people are going crazy for it. And it's all based on rap music.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, yes, variety and sharing variety with kids can help them be less narrow in the way they see the world.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we say here on Reading with Your Kids, if a kid says to you, I don't like to read, I don't like reading, it's, well, you just haven't found the right book yet. And I think the same can be true if someone says, well, I don't like rock and roll. Well, you just haven't listened to the right song yet.
Yeah, I agree. I was one of those kids who said, I don't like to read. I had some learning disabilities, and it made it difficult for me to read and to write. And it wasn't until after high school that I discovered that I found strategies that helped me make reading and writing easier.
Oh, cool.
And then I found that I loved it, and started writing, and the rest is history. Now I have books of my own. And that all comes from a place of wanting more and wanting to try things, even though it was difficult. But
yeah. Well, you know, I'm as you're talking about Rock and Roll Baby, I'm thinking I would have loved the book, I'm sure, when my kids were babies, because it would have given me the chance to sing. I am thinking that this is a book I would be singing. This book.
That is exactly, and it is set to the rhythm of the original lullaby.
Right.
So, because of the wording of some of the lines, it's not precisely word for word, but you can find the melody in any page.
Yeah.
And it's fun. And I have a friend, fellow author, who reviewed the book early, and she has a 1.5-year-old. And she said her husband would try to sing each page in the style of that music. And she said it's hilarious, and the little girl loves it because of the interactive quality with her parents.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things, you know, I launched Reading with Your Kids because I knew that my relationship with my now adult kids was built on a foundation of reading, and not just reading together, but reading as a performing art. doing the characters, doing the voices, getting the emotions down and encouraging them to do the same thing. And so that's why I think Rock and Roll Baby would be so much fun, because it kind of lends itself to being playful.
All I can do is hope that a lot of parents and kids really bond over this book and can enjoy that process.
Yeah. Tommy, you told me that you were a musical theater kid and that you were in New York around the same time as Andrew Keenan Bolger. So you've been in front of audiences. You've heard the roar of the crowd. This is different. When you're, and I know being up on stage, you get instant feedback. You do something, you get the feedback. As an author, you do something and you write something, and it might be 5 or 6 years before the book hits the shelves.
Absolutely.
And then you're never there in the room when the dad's singing the book to the kid. How is that? How were you able to make that transition?
It's a fun question. There's so many similarities and differences between the two careers. The best similarity is that I think Andrew alluded to it also in his interview, is that there's lots of rejection when you're on Broadway.
Yes.
Daily, to your face. Mm-hmm. So you get really good at that. So when I went through the process of looking for an agent and submitting these books, and I got a lot of rejection. I got my agent after my, I think, 322 submissions. So I'm no stranger to rejection, but it wasn't that hard for me because of that previous career. Now, as far as the instant feedback, it's very strange. When my first book released 2 years ago, I was actually in, I think, Montenegro, back Eastern Europe. And so I didn't actually see my book for, I think, 3 months after it was released. So I didn't have a chance to do any in-person events or anything. So I really got zero feedback on that. Even less than this. This one comes out on, we're a little ahead of that now, but it comes out March 3rd, which is less than 2 weeks away now.
Yep.
But I feel like now I'm back in Nevada. I have a community of fellow writers, and I worked at the library, so I have connections through that, where I'll actually see kids reading the book and be able to read the book to kids. And that's really exciting to have that whole different experience with this book.
I bet. So you're looking forward to doing classroom visits and readings at libraries and bookstores and things like that?
Absolutely. I have a few scheduled now, a few library visits, a few school visits, which is all pretty new to me because I didn't do it with my first book.
Right.
And so I don't have like a big, like you, I'm sure a classroom visit is second nature to you at this point. You have done so much work in front of kids. Luckily, I did work in a classroom for years, and then I was a youth librarian at a public library for a number of years. So I did do a lot of story times already. So it's not foreign ground to me, but with my own books, it's a whole different thing when you're sharing something that you've created yourself.
Yeah, it certainly is. Yeah, but I'm sure I'm sure you're gonna crush it. You can bring those Broadway chops right back.
If I could sing it, I'll be fine. Yeah.
There you go. Well, I think that's what you should do is get in there, sing a couple of verses, teach the kids how to sing a verse and all sing it together. That would be cool. And it might be fun for the parents is just help them realize how evil the original nursery rhyme it. Rockabye baby on a treetop when winds blows.
Oh, breaks. Yeah.
So that's like, I had never taken the time to think about that. And then when someone pointed it out, I'm like going, oh man, all those old fairy tales of the originals are really gruesome.
There's some terrifying things that happened. I don't know how children mentally survive those ages.
So are you able to tell, well, you made reference to your first book. Tell us a little bit about your first book, please.
My first book is called Free to be Fabulous. It was illustrated by Robbie Cathro and published by Clarion Books at HarperCollins. And it was, I tend to write books that are comedic, and I enjoy rhyme. I like the rhythm and the pattern of it. I don't always write in rhyme, but I enjoy that. I enjoy comedy. And my first book that sold, though, was a more personal book about a young boy who follows his passion to dance and ends up being bullied for it, but finds his strength in that very thing that he's bullied for.
Excellent.
And growing up as an artistic child, one who enjoyed the arts and dance, and I never got bullied for it. I think I had a small, kind community, but I did feel out of place at times. I did feel like there weren't opportunities for me being in a rural community. And so I was able to write a character who was able to express his artistic side, sort of like I was not. So maybe it's the wannabe me that the book is about.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Tell me, is there a work in progress you can give us a sneak preview of?
I wish it would be. It's taking a long time for the announcement to be made, and so I can't announce too much, but I will say that I have a early reader series coming up.
Oh.
It's about perspectives.
Okay.
And it's a book that will be able to be read in such a way that you see one character's perspective, then the other character's perspective, and then both of their perspectives, and see how they affect each other.
Yeah.
It was something that I was really excited about. I had written it as a single picture book, but then it got put away on the shelf like so many do.
Yeah.
And I was like, I still think this one could work. And I brought it out and I worked on it a while, and it became, I just saw its possibilities as an early reader. I started reducing the words and making it simpler, but then I also knew that early readers are really hard to sell. They're usually in-house or created by author illustrators. They're usually in a series. There's so many things that are different than a picture book,
right,
that I knew I would have to overcome. So I ended up writing a whole series, even though I know they're only going to look at one book, but I wanted to make sure that if the opportunity came up, there would be more available. And my agent saw my enthusiasm for the project, and though she did not have a lot of familiarity with selling early readers herself, she was like, let's make this work. So we worked together. We created a list. We sent to a bunch of early reader publishers, and luckily one of them bit. And I'm almost more surprised that it happened just because I know the odds were against me. So it's exciting to have that. And it's in good shape. The first book is really all together with the artist and the art. Pretty much ready. And that'll come out next fall, the first book.
That's great. That's it. Well, next fall, please come back and we'll celebrate that when we're able to.
That would be very fun.
In the meantime, let's tell everybody where they can go to find out more about Rock and Roll Baby and find out more about you.
Okay, Rock and Roll Baby. It's published at Random House. So if you go to Random House Children's Books, you can find it there. More information there, and the book is sold at all online sellers.
Yep.
It is. You can find out more about me. I like to play with Instagram more than any of the other sites, and that would be David McMullen PB is my handle at Instagram. I don't really use much of the other sites right now, but I do also have a website.
Okay.
And that website is David McMullen Books.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of Rock and Roll Baby. It is the new board book from our guest, David McMullen. Hey, David, thanks so much for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
Hey, we hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. If this episode made you smile or gave you something to think about, please consider sharing a link to the show with someone you love. Leave a 5-star review and, of course, subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. We'd also love for you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, and at Jedley Magic on X. Our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids, and our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Hey, if you are the author of a fantastic children's book, please visit readingwithyourkids.com. Click on the author's Click Here button up at the top of the page. That will tell you not only how you can pitch yourself to be a guest here on the podcast, it'll also tell you about our wonderful Certified Great Read program. You heard us celebrate the fact that The Power of Encouragement by Ruth Malley is our latest Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read. Being a Certified Great Read is a great way for families to know that your book is worthy to be considered to be a part of their family or classroom library. You can check it out today at readingwithyourkids.com and click on that author's Click Here button up at the top of the page. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Maria Dolores Aguila. Please be sure to check out A Sea of Lemon Trees. I also want to thank David McMullen. Please be sure to check out Rock and Roll Baby. I want to thank all of our sponsors. I want to thank Ruth Malley for submitting her book to our Certified Great Read program. And I also want to thank my team, Chris Doherty, Jackson Saltalara. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the love and support she gives me. Most of all, we want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better, healthier, more empathetic and compassionate place. And you do that every single time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you on the next episode of Reading with Your Kids. Right now, sit back because you're going to get a chance to hear the song that we created for Ruth Malley's The Power of Encouragement. We call it You Can Do It.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, yeah, yeah. Whoa. Sometimes I feel a little small, like I might not try at all. I can do this, starts to say, but then I hear a voice my way. You got this, give it a try, take a breath, reach for the sky. Those little words, they light the spark, they turn a whisper into a roar inside my heart. When I feel scared, when I feel stuck, when I feel like I'm not alone. Feel you can do it, you can try. Lift your head up, reach up high. From I can to I can, that's the power in your hand. You can do it, don't give in, that's where courage can begin. When we help each other through it, that's the magic, you can do it. Spill the flour on the floor, felt like I messed up for sure, but someone smiled and said that's okay, let's just try again today. Fell off my bike, scraped my knee, didn't think I'd ever be brave enough to try one